Right, welcome back to Fly Fishing Rutland Water. We're here in British Columbia, still on the Skeena River, still on the bar beat, where we have been. I think this is the fifth or the sixth time we've been here. So I thought I would do a video to put everything that's happened into context, so when you actually watch the fishing videos, you kind of get a sense for kind of how things worked out well, but also how things worked out badly. I think if you're going to come on a trip like this, you kind of think of it as the trip of a lifetime. So you kind of expect everything to be as close to perfect as possible. And I have to say, this has been far from perfect. You know, I signed up for this trip about a year ago. I had quite a lot of reservations because I hadn't been abroad for quite a while. I didn't even have a passport. I swore when I came back from America in 2014 that I wouldn't travel again. And so I was kind of reticent to sign up to another overseas trip. I was convinced that this was going to be the fishing experience of a lifetime. So I thought, yeah, let's go. So then I started asking some questions about, you know, how it was going to work. The first question I asked was, what kind of gear do I need? Because I've got a bunch of salmon fishing gear at home. But last time I went to Canada, I was able to fish with a single-handed rod for the entire time on the Miramichi, and I wanted to do the same thing. Now I was told, basically all I needed was an 8-weight, 9-foot reservoir rod, and that would cover everything. And to be fair, that's what I used on the Miramichi. Slightly heavier, but 9-foot rod. So last year I bought an Orvis Helios 3F, specifically for this trip, because that's what I was told I needed. When we got here, I'm afraid the kind of guides looked at me like I was crazy. So on the very first day, I kind of figured out that I was underpowered. Everybody else was getting fish and I kind of wasn't. And it was because the tips that I had weren't getting down deep enough. So I discovered these T17 and T20 tips, which if you want to get to the salmon, you have to put on your rod to get down. Now with an 8-weight rod, seriously, forget it. It was almost impossible to cast. So I didn't get anything on the first day. I was a bit despondent. I put on the fastest tips that I could possibly use on the heaviest flies and just didn't touch a fish. Everybody else was catching fish. So the shoulders drop a little bit. And then on the second day, I came out with the same rod. I thought, I'm going to persevere. By this time, I'd made up some of these T20 tips. And then I tried casting them, and it was kind of, to say they're unwieldy is the understatement of the century. But I managed to persevere. I caught a massive steelhead that took me all the way down to my back, and it took me all the way down there, took all the line off my reel, right down to the reel, and then came off. But it kind of proved that you could catch fish. And then not long after that, I caught a really nice coho, which again, nice fish, managed to get it in, and I was absolutely delighted. And then the guide said to me, are you going to stop being a beep and maybe fish with a double-handed rod? So I used a double-handed rod that one of the guides had, and it kind of changed everything. I could fish the same tip, I could cast it out, and then I caught a bunch more fish using the double-handed rod. Next day I actually used a friend's rod, but then I suddenly realised, well, if I'm using this guy's Sage rod, it could break, and I've got to pay for it. So I ended up buying an entire new kit. Now, if I'd known that before I came here, I could have come here prepared, but I didn't, because I was badly advised. So you'll hear me talking in one of the videos about how it's so important to kind of really do your homework and read up on the beat, because if I had kind of stuck with what I had, this week would have been miserable. There's a few other things that are really important on a trip like this. When I signed up for it, I kind of signed up for an experience where I was going to be fishing in the wilderness. You'd have 3 people with one guide. You'd go off into the distance, into the hills, and fish some really, really secluded spots. I'm afraid that hasn't happened. We've been pretty much on this bar the entire time. And this is not wilderness fishing. This is public water. Anybody can fish here if you've got a license. So it's nothing like the exclusive experience that I was promised. Now I have caught a lot of fish, which is nice. You know, so that part of the experience has worked. But you know, you're probably going to be bored to death on YouTube watching the same spots over and over again. When we came, we thought there was going to be 9 of us, split between 3 guides, fishing in completely different places. What's happened is there's been 9 of us, with 2 guides, fishing in the same space. And, you know, a lot of the trip was advertised that you could catch lots and lots and lots of fish. So in Scotland, you fish a spot, you move, you fish a spot, you move, so that everybody gets a fair shot at it. Again, that hasn't happened here. There's been an awful lot of fish fever. And on this particular beat, there are really 3 places where the fish are channeled and you can catch fish. Now, if there's people in that spot, they have absolutely no obligation to move. So on that very first day when we came down, the guys that were there before us effectively just stayed there and never moved. With the same problem on the second day. So it's almost like you kind of have to fight for your spot to get a chance to catch a fish. And again, it's not what we signed up for. Because another group of Canadians who are affiliated to the lodge appeared about halfway through. Now they are supposed to go to specific spots and fish. Now the bar is the only place that's fishing well because of the river levels. It's the only place that's consistent, so everybody wants to come here. So basically the guy that's with the Canadians has got the fastest boat, and he's basically been coming here and basically blocking off the spot, so we can't even get near it. So not only is there competition amongst the group that I'm in, there's competition with the other groups as well, and it's incredibly, incredibly frustrating when you've come all this way and you just simply want to fish and you can't get a spot. Everybody's paid the same money, but some people are getting better treatment than others, and that really just isn't fair. Some other stuff. I don't want this to sound like a bitching session, but again, I just want it to be clear that if you sign up for something, you kind of expect it to be as you signed up for. I'm very private, so when the trip was first mooted, I said, look, I'll come, provided I have a single room. I do not do sharing. I just don't do sharing. And there was a lot of people in the group that were of the same mindset, and we were all assured absolutely 100% that we would have single rooms. On the first day that we arrived, we started looking at the number of rooms in the lodge and the number of people, and it didn't work out. There wasn't a single room for everybody. Now, I'd made such a point of it. I'd pretty much said it was a deal breaker that if I didn't get a single room, I'd get on the plane and go straight back home. So I kind of got one. And so did a few other people, but there are people on this trip that paid for single rooms that are having to share. And that's just really not on. We've got other people that have single rooms that don't have bathrooms, that are having to share stuff. We've got people that have single rooms that don't have showers. I mean, it's beyond farcical, quite frankly. And this is not cheap. Now, when you look at the other lodges, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, you kind of know what you're signing up for. It's more expensive, but I can kind of believe that they're actually delivering what's on the side of the tin. This is one of these lodges where everybody comes once, but tends not to come back again. So I would really, if you do your research, if you get in touch with me and find out what this lodge is, I'll happily tell you privately and pretty much tell you just do not come here. Do not come in. Do not come to this lodge under any circumstances. And whatever people sell you, don't believe it. Do not come to this lodge. Now, I've got about 3 days left now, so I'm just trying to make the best. I've had some fabulous fish. Really enjoyed the fish that I've got, and when I have been able to fish, I've really enjoyed it. But it's been way much harder work. So with that, I think I've covered everything. You know, some days you get breakfast, some days you don't. It's a bit like the Forrest Gump saying, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. And that is what this trip has been like. Not the experience of a lifetime. Sometimes it's actually been a bit of the nightmare of a lifetime, the fishing nightmare of a lifetime. So I'm trying to make the best of it. You'll see in the videos I am really trying to do the best I can with the situation that's been presented. I'm generally very, very positive, and I'm trying to remain positive but it is incredibly hard. If these Canadians actually move at any point in time, I will get in there and have a go and hopefully give you some nice new video today. There are a lot of videos that I managed to make during the trip talking about different elements of it, so I hope you enjoy them, but I just thought I needed to start putting this trip into context, and this will probably be the first video you see, which is kind of filmed at the end of the trip, just so that if I'm not my usual self, you kind of understand about some of the stuff that's been going on. Right, there's another thing I want to talk about, and it's the technique the guides have been showing us to catch fish. And basically what it involves is you're using your Skagit head, and you're only throwing out the head at 90 degrees to the bank. You then use a 10-foot T17 or T20 tip. They recommend T20. And then a leader of about 2 to 3 feet, and then a fly. So you throw this thing out at 90 degrees, you let it come round to about 11 o'clock, and then you start pulling the line. You start moving the rod parallel to the water. Then when you get to about 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you pull it fast. Now, does anybody want to hazard a guess as to what happens when you do that with a really, really high density tip? It's going to go, the fly is going to be right on the bottom, and then it's going to be pulled up fast, and it's going to intercept anything that it's going past. And I wondered why I've kind of caught a few fish on the dorsal fin. There's another technique to use, which is they'll, rather than using a proper fly, they'll just use a piece of wool tied to a hook. Now, and this was doing our heads in, because we thought, why are people catching fish doing this? It's only a piece of wool. And there's all sorts of theories about how it's supposed to represent flesh being drifting down the river. But it's not, it's just to kind of give the hook a bit of buoyancy. And then when you do that thing, you're pulling it through. The other thing that you have to be aware is these fish have their mouths wide open when they're sitting in the river. So if that line is coming along and being pulled up, the chances are it's going to come straight through the mouth. So when you look at where the fish are being hooked, they're being hooked on the outside of the part of the mouth that's away from the bank. Again, naughty hooking. So I did it and caught a few fish, and everybody else has been doing it all the time, but I just kind of feel it's kind of not what you sign up to do. I want these fish to be taking the fly proper. So today I'm casting properly. I'm casting across at 90 degrees. I'm letting the line come across in the drift, and I'm not doing any retrieve whatsoever. I'm trying to keep the fly literally bobbing along in the place where it's supposed to be, so the fish can come up behind it and take it properly. If you like the video, please make sure you hit the like button. And as always, I would be delighted if you would subscribe to the channel to see more of my fishy adventures. Thanks for watching.